Hello and welcome back to my LEGO Castle Kingdom Work in Progress series. As this epic project nears completion, I thought I'd make one last work in progress update before the finishing touches and the final video where I'll be doing a full tour of the complete model. Some of the latest changes which we'll be taking a look at this time include the royal bedchambers fitted with luxurious furniture and golden decorations, a medieval Alchemists Laboratory, as well as some extra smaller rooms and interiors. So as always, plenty of exciting new things which I can't wait to share with you, and let's begin by taking a closer look at the new additions to the exterior of the castle. As you can see, the entire castle has almost doubled in size since last time, with the tallest point standing at over 180 centimeters off the ground. Since this was really the last bit of space that I had available to decorate, I wanted to go all out and really make this as interesting and unique as possible. So as I walk around each of the sides of the castle, you can see just how much this new top part extends above the outer wall, which once seemed quite big by itself, but is now almost dwarfed by the height of the towers and the top levels of the castle keep. So I won't talk about every single thing that I've added here, I'll just focus on some of the highlights, which as you can see include things like this cool stone window looking into the royal bedchambers inside that level, as well as this overhanging wooden building section, which I tried to make it look like it's been extended out from the original structure, and that adds a nice splash of colour to break up the otherwise grey wall. There's also this angled wall section next to it, which extends out from the top of the angled walls below, featuring some interesting window designs, and this longbowman who's out on patrol on the battlements. This is also a really neat technique for that angled roof, which is just made out of some angled flag pieces to create a little arch above that doorway. And from here we can also get a good view of this bridge, which arches over the roof of that wooden building to provide a bit of variation in the architecture. I also really like this large round tower, especially that small turret section which I've added on to the side, because that helps break up the repetitive nature of the tower and just adds a little extra unusual detail. I've also added this astronomy viewing section complete with a telescope right on the top floor of this tallest tower, because I thought again that's a nice way to add some variety and just make it look a little bit more unusual. The last technique which I'd like to point out is how I achieved this wooden panelling effect for this small tower, which as you can see makes use of these new curved wooden frames, and you can see how I've used both the lattice windows and the white window panel pieces to match that white and brown styling across the rest of the castle. If we head around the other side, we uncover even more towers and spires that were previously hidden from the front. And from here you can also get a much better idea of the true scale of this entire castle, as it's unobstructed sitting up on top of the mountain. That looks so amazing from this view. And if we focus on one bit of architecture specifically, you might remember that stained glass window setup in front of the Great Hall. Well, I've extended that and continued these columns up using these really nice printed elements and topped them off with these pointed roofs on the top with the two flags. And that opens up into this small balcony, which actually leads further into the royal bedchambers, which we'll take a look at very soon. You can also get a much closer look at things like this turret section attached to the top of the large tower. And if we head around to this side, you can see this is where the two new interiors are located. And I've also added this large flat area on top of the battlements, which gives this a bit of space and acts as a way to connect the different areas together. I think it was definitely the right decision to keep this side of the castle open, is so much more interesting like this rather than having more grey walls. So now let's head inside and take a closer look at some of the new interiors. So we'll start with the largest and most important room on this floor, the royal bedchambers. This is almost as big as the Great Hall below it, and includes all of the furnishings fit for a king and queen. So starting over on this side, I've added one of these really fancy looking poster style beds, just like you'd see in these types of medieval castles and palaces, and you can see that it's looking very luxurious, with the double bed in the middle and the curtains extending all the way around with these golden candle pieces which I've used to build up the structure, and that golden dish piece to cap it off in the middle. And I've also added a bedside table with a nice rose in this glass, candelabra, and some paintings of the king and queen, maybe when they were younger, along with a very shiny sword hanging on the wall, just as a bit of a display piece. There's also a treasure chest with some of the king's valuables and personal possessions, and you can also see a bookcase all the way at the back there, and that's got a very special feature which we'll come back to in a little bit. Over in the middle of the room there's this really cool rug made out of some nice printed pieces from the Chinese New Year sets. There's another matching one just next to the bed there. And then this small dining area with a couple of very fancy looking chairs following a similar design to the one I included in the main library. And this unusual table made from these golden dragon hilt pieces carved into the legs. And behind these chairs I thought it'd be a good space to include this small dressing table where the queen can get ready and display all of her jewellery and crowns and things like necklaces on this bust, as well as admire this painting of some other member of the royal family. And that piece is just a printed swivel door from the old Lego Harry Potter sets, in case you're wondering where I got that from. And what's cool about this dresser is this is based on my opening Lego drawer design, so as you can see each of the drawers can open up and hold different accessories and even more intricate necklaces. And I've included that functionality in all of the furniture, so you can see even in this wardrobe all the drawers can open up, and same thing with this bedside drawer unit over at the back here. There's nothing in this top one, but then there's some socks in the bottom one. And if you'd like to build some of these working opening drawers for yourself, then check out my how to build tutorials, which will be linked in the description below. The last side of this room includes this small arched area, which is neatly divided off with these cool golden bar pieces, and this is the location of a private bathroom. So that includes this wooden bathtub with some bubbles and brushes on these shelves, along with a towel in the corner, and this really cool rose stained glass window. That's another really nice printed piece which I thought would fit perfectly in this area. Then the only other details around here is just this golden torch on the wall, some kind of basin on the floor, and some more crowns stacked on top of this wardrobe, which also opens up, although there's not currently anything stored inside it. But that's just got enough space to fit some minifigure clothes, or maybe some capes or other types of clothing like that. And now that we've seen basically all of the main things inside this royal bedroom, we can take a look at the secret hidden behind the bookcase. You can never have too many secret passages in a medieval castle, so I decided this would be the perfect place to include my working secret bookcase door. So at first glance, this might look like a standard Lego bookcase, and if you try and move it, nothing will happen, because you need to pull out the specific book in order to unlock the bookcase from the wall, and by doing that, that will allow you to open it up and escape through into the room next door. A very useful secret route to have in case you end up with some enemies at the front door. Of course, during normal situations, you wouldn't have to go through the bookcase. You could just take the door. Either way, that will lead you into this entrance hallway, which acts as a small hub to connect all the different areas together. So for example, you have these steps leading down from the banister, and they link up with the spiral staircase, which goes down into the Great Hall. Or alternatively, you could also go through that door, and that will take you out onto that balcony with the archer. I've also added a little game of chess being played by two noblemen, although it looks like that guy in green isn't having such a great time. And this will also lead you up into the next floor, which opens up inside the large round tower. Before we continue up that though, let's head out and first take a look at the Alchemists Laboratory. Since I'm aiming to keep this build at least semi-realistic, I didn't want to go the whole way and include a full-on wizard's workshop or anything magical like that. So instead, I decided that a good substitute for this kind of thing would be to include an alchemist, basically a medieval scientist. So as you can see, this has still given me the opportunity to fill this place with lots of colourful potions and liquids, all being experimented on by the alchemist here, who does look like a wizard, I'll admit that, but that's such a cool minifigure and I had to include that somewhere in this build. So here's his medieval science contraption with a bunch of really unusual transparent and dual colour Lego pieces, which looks like a very complex setup for the medieval time period. He's also got some kind of crystal ball there and a key hanging up on the wall, as well as plenty of shelves at the back full of all kinds of potions, liquids and other unusual substances, as well as some crates full of scrolls, a lantern, and a ladder made out of lightsaber hilt pieces, which leads up to the very top of this tower. Or it would do if it had an interior, but since it's such a small space, I thought it's not really worth building anything inside that tower specifically. Then there's also a star chart on the wall. You can see that just in the dark there at the back. Overall, a very colourful and fun scene that fills that space perfectly. So now let's move on even higher up and climb these small wooden steps back up into the tower and take a look inside here. So this is just your standard 16-sided hinge plate constructed round tower, and as you can see I've included this ladder which goes up to both the next floor and the floor below it, which connects to that hallway that you saw earlier. And here you can see I've added a little scene of this princess posing with some flowers, currently having her portrait painted by this famous artist who's been invited to provide his artistic talents. And I'd like to point out the technique which I used to create his easel, which is actually made out of Lego Harry Potter wand pieces, still partially attached to the moulding sprue that they came on in the set. I haven't seen these wand pieces used like that before, but I think that just works so perfectly to create the three-pronged legs of the wooden easel. Moving even further up, we reach the highest room inside the castle, and this is simply a small bedroom for a princess. So there's her bed with the printed pink tiles, very fitting, as well as this table with a candelabra on it, and also the ladder to reach the floor in the first place. Then the other side of this bedroom includes a fancy looking mirror and a small drawer cabinet with some jewellery on display. And then just where this turret connects here, to make it more believable, I've added this small wooden door to act as the door which the minifigures can use to get inside there. Maybe that's just somewhere where they can read some books or just enjoy the view. To view the final new room inside my castle, we'll have to travel all the way back down through each of the floors and basement sub-levels until we reach the very bottom of the castle, which contains the top security prison and dungeon. So right at the start, you have the guard in charge of all of the prisoners, and also another guard keeping watch with a crossbow in the background, some kinds of tools and equipment hanging up, and obviously the key to unlock the door, very important. And on the opposite side, that is a massive jail door that houses this quite large jail cell with this guy who's just hanging around there. And there's currently no living inhabitants in here, except for a rat in the corner and some chains and handcuffs and things like that hanging up, as well as a very basic straw bed and snack for any minifigures who are unfortunate enough to end up here. Finally, I've added a few smaller details around this side, mainly inside the tower that sits behind the castle gardens. The first of which is this giant metal fire pit, which is a really neat design built out of an octagonal bar plate, several skeleton arms, and these relatively new 1x2 bar pieces to form this metal cage that goes around the fire and protects minifigures from getting too close. I've also decided to fill this interior with a small statue room, including some stone sculpted statues of famous philosophers, knights and scholars, and I thought that's just a really neat space where minifigures can come inside and admire the artwork and just relax after visiting the castle gardens. I've also added a bit of colour to the courtyard and extended the stone path which leads up to the main steps all the way to the entrance of the castle. And that's pretty much everything that's new for this time. The finish is definitely in sight. Pretty much the only things left to do is to cover the base, add the finishing touches, and maybe even install some more lighting and LEDs to bring this layout to life. So stay tuned for the last video in this series, which will be the full tour of my entire complete LEGO Castle Kingdom. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave it a like and a comment, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you always know when my latest videos are available. As always, I'd like to thank all of my supporters on Patreon for helping to make all of this possible, and I'll see you next time with more awesome LEGO creations. Thanks for watching.